Airport security changes airlines would never tell you, but we will. Airport security in 2026 is stricter, more digital, and more document-driven than many travelers realize. The biggest change is not one dramatic new checkpoint rule. It is that several small systems now work together. Stricter ID enforcement, paid backup identity verification, expanding facial screening, digital border systems in Europe, continued liquids restrictions, and tighter battery enforcement. Airlines usually focus on getting you booked and boarded, but they do not always spell out how these rules can delay you, cost you money, or even stop your trip before takeoff. That is why smart travelers now prepare for security long before they reach the scanner. Below are the airport security changes that matter most right now, explained in a clear way and broken into subtopics so you can use them in your script. 1. Real ID is now a real airport problem. One of the biggest security changes travelers still underestimate is Real ID enforcement in the United States. TSA says that since May 7, 2025, a standard state driver's license that is not Real ID compliant is no longer accepted by itself for domestic air travel. That means many passengers can show up with what used to work and suddenly face delays or denial at the checkpoint. Airlines do not always stress this because the problem usually explodes at security, not at booking. The hidden truth is that your plane ticket means nothing if your ID fails. In 2026, airport security begins before the metal detector. It begins with document compliance. The smartest move is to travel with a Real ID-compliant license, passport, or another TSA-accepted identification every time, rather than assuming your old card is still good enough. 2. No valid ID can now mean a $45 checkpoint decision. Another major 2026 change is TSA Confirm ID. TSA says that starting February 1, 2026, passengers who arrive without an acceptable ID may try to verify their identity through this program, and the fee is $45. That sounds like a backup plan, but it is not something travelers should rely on casually. TSA also makes clear there is no guarantee you will be verified successfully. Airlines rarely highlight this because it turns a forgotten ID mistake into a formal security issue, not just a customer service problem. The real lesson is that airports are becoming less flexible and more system-based. If your ID situation is wrong, you may now face an extra fee, extra time, and extra uncertainty before you even get screened. What used to feel like an awkward exception has become a structured, paid process. 3. Your face is becoming part of airport security. Airport security is becoming more biometric, and that is a major shift travelers can feel in 2026. TSA's touchless ID program for eligible pre-check travelers uses facial matching to verify identity, and TSA says it is expanding to 65 airports in spring 2026. This means the checkpoint experience is moving away from purely manual document checks and toward faster identity confirmation through camera-based systems. Airlines do not always frame this as a security change, but that is exactly what it is. Your face is increasingly part of the screening workflow. For travelers, this means airports are becoming more automated, more data-driven, and potentially faster for those enrolled in the right programs. It does not eliminate the need for proper identification, but it does change how that identification is verified. The future checkpoint is clearly more biometric than paper-based. 4. Europe's border checks are now more digital than many travelers expect. If you are flying into much of Europe, the Entry/Exit System, or EES, is one of the biggest security and border control changes now active. EU sources say EES became fully operational on April 10, 2026, replacing passport stamping with digital entry and exit records for non-EU short-stay travelers. The system records passport data, facial images, and fingerprints. Airlines may not emphasize this enough, but this changes the airport experience before and after landing. Border checks are now more automated, more traceable, and more consistent. That means travel errors are easier for the system to catch. It also means first-time entry can involve a different, more biometric process than many passengers are used to. In simple terms, Europe has moved from manual stamps to digital traveler tracking, and that changes what smooth airport processing looks like. 5. Liquids rules are still alive, even if travelers think they are fading. A lot of passengers assume airport scanners are now advanced enough that the classic liquids rule is basically gone. That is not true in general. TSA still says liquids, aerosols, gels, creams, and pastes in carry-on bags must be in containers of 3.4 ounces or 100 milliliters or less, and they must fit in the usual single quart size bag setup. Some airports may introduce new screening technology over time, but that does not mean the average traveler can suddenly ignore the rule. Airlines rarely warn people clearly because this issue usually turns into a checkpoint confiscation, not a booking problem. But for passengers, it still matters a lot. One oversized toiletry or liquid gift can slow you down or get thrown away. In 2026, one of the oldest airport security rules is still one of the easiest ways to get tripped up. 6. Power banks in checked bags are still a serious mistake. One of the most important security rules travelers keep getting wrong involves lithium batteries. FAA guidance says spare lithium batteries and power banks must be carried in carry-on baggage only and must not go in checked luggage. If your carry-on is taken at the gate and checked, the batteries must be removed and kept with you in the cabin. This is not a small technical detail. It is a major fire safety rule. Airlines do not always explain it well, but airport security and airline staff take it seriously because a smoking battery can be managed in the cabin far more effectively than in the cargo hold. In practice, that means your charger, spare camera battery, or battery case can become a security problem if packed the wrong way. A lot of passengers still treat batteries like ordinary electronics, and that is exactly where mistakes happen. 7. Bigger batteries now bring tighter limits and more questions. The battery rule gets even stricter once the power gets larger. FAA guidance says lithium-ion batteries up to 100 watt-hours are generally allowed on passenger aircraft, while spare batteries between 101 and 160 watt-hours require airline approval and are limited. Batteries above 160 watt-hours are forbidden on passenger flights. This matters for travelers carrying professional camera gear, drones, larger power solutions, or specialized work devices. Airlines often mention check battery rules, but they do not always spell out how exact the airport standard really is. Security staff and gate agents care about the watt-hour rating, not just whether something is called a charger. So if the number is unclear, unlabeled, or outside the permitted range, you may lose time or lose the item. In 2026, battery compliance is part of security literacy, especially for travelers carrying more than basic personal electronics. 8. Digital border permission is becoming part of security before boarding. Another big change is that airport security now overlaps more with immigration screening before departure. In Europe, ETIAS is expected to start later in 2026 for many visa-exempt travelers, while the UK already requires ETA for many eligible visitors before travel. This means the old idea that immigration happens after I land is no longer fully true. Airlines and airport systems check whether you have the right digital authorization before you even board. That makes security broader than bags and body scanners. It now includes whether your identity, passport, and travel permission all match in advance. Airlines rarely present this as part of airport security, but from the traveler's side, the effect is the same. If your digital clearance is missing, your journey can stop at the airport. The checkpoint is no longer the only barrier. The system begins earlier. 9. Accessibility screening support is available, but you need to plan ahead. A security change many travelers overlook is that checkpoint support has become more structured for those who need assistance. TSA's passenger support and TSA Cares resources let travelers request help with the screening process, and TSA says travelers should contact TSA Cares at least 72 hours before departure when possible. Airlines do not always make this obvious because it sits between customer service and security operations, but for passengers with disabilities, medical conditions, or special screening concerns, knowing this option exists can completely change the airport experience. The hidden truth is that security is not only becoming stricter, it is also becoming more formalized in how it handles special cases. That means travelers who prepare in advance often get much smoother checkpoint support than those who wait until the line itself. In 2026, planning ahead is part of traveling securely and comfortably. 10. Airport security is now more about systems than individual moments. The biggest 2026 change is not any single rule. It is the way all the rules now connect. Real ID enforcement, paid ID verification, biometrics, digital border systems, liquids limits, and battery controls all point in the same direction. Airport security is becoming more integrated, more digital, and less forgiving of last-minute mistakes. Airlines usually talk about schedules, fares, and baggage. What they rarely explain clearly is that security has become a pre-travel system, not just a checkpoint event. Your documents, permissions, electronics, and even your packing style are now part of one chain. If one link fails, the airport can slow you down or stop you completely. That is why smart travelers in 2026 prepare earlier than before. They do not just ask, "What time is my flight?" They ask, "Is everything about me ready for the system?" That is the real security shift. The airport security story in 2026 is bigger than scanners and long lines. It is about identity, digital clearance, biometric matching, and stricter enforcement of rules many travelers still treat casually. Airlines may not spell all of that out, but passengers feel it when a missing real ID, wrong battery, oversized liquid, or absent travel authorization suddenly becomes a trip-ending problem. The smartest way to travel now is to think beyond your ticket. Check your ID, verify your destination's requirements, pack batteries correctly, assume the liquids rule still applies, and expect airports to use more automation than before. When you understand that security has become a connected system, not just a single checkpoint, you travel with a huge advantage.